Hey guys, it's Eric again. We're here to look at how to create a build plan for your selected project. So you're looking at the template for your build plan right now. This is all the necessary information that you need to include so that your lead instructor knows who you are and what project you're doing. This is also based on previous examples, BlueStamp Engineering projects, or sites such as Instructables. So my name is Eric, last name Hattlestead, so this would be your name, Joe Smith. You could be located anywhere in the country, but it's important that you put your location down as where you will be participating in BlueStamp Engineering. So I'm going to be in Palo Alto. My instructor, I was the lead instructor, so I'm going to be my own instructor, but the name of your instructor will be your lead instructor's name. So that's important for documentation's sake. And then putting down your main project. If you pulled a project from the project book, put down the project number and the name. So I selected a smart mailbox, which isn't in the project book, so I'm going to make up my own number as 007 smart mailbox. But again, that should be your project number from the project book as well as the title of the project, so your lead instructor knows where you're getting your information from. So next up, we're going to take a look at kind of the major steps. So I'm looking here at Instructables, and I can see there are probably going to be right around 8 big steps necessary for me to complete my project. So this first part is just kind of a description of why and how you would use the project. Step 1, actually true step 1, is materials acquisition and inventory. So you have already gone through a bill of materials creation, and your lead instructor has ordered parts. So now we have to sit down with your lead instructor or another instructor at your location and ensure that everything that you needed for your project is there. So you're going to sit down and do an inventory of all the parts and pieces, components of your project. That's important to make sure you have everything you need to complete your project at the start. So that's kind of like a good checkpoint. So let's move on to number 2 here. Let's see, what do I need to do next? My next big checkpoint is going to be setting up my Raspberry Pi. So that's kind of a big thing, particularly with Raspberry Pis. You have to install an operating system, and I'm hoping that in the instructions here they kind of give me some direction. Yeah, so I'm going to go check out Raspbian and flash everything onto an SD card and write that to my Raspberry Pi so it functions appropriately. So again, just kind of making a note of the big major steps necessary to complete the project right now. As we continue on, we'll see that it's kind of step 1 of my hardware component. So I'm going to set up my Pir motion sensor separate from that of any other component. So I just want to make sure that my motion sensor works on its own. I don't need it to interface with anything. I just need it to work. So I can write the code and I can set up the hardware for that. So again, that's going to be separate from other components. Much as part 3 is its own separate component, we can take a look at some of the information to use. Here's a circuit diagram from Fritzing that we can use to set up the Pir motion sensor for part 3. So that'll be referenced later, but let's move on to part 4. Again, much like part 3, we're going to set this up separately from the Pir motion sensor. So when we're establishing and building the circuit for the laser diode to the Raspberry Pi, that will interface separately with the Raspberry Pi so we can minimize the troubleshooting process and make that easier as we continue our build out of our project. Again, step 5 is going to be the same thing. We can reference the circuit as we're building it. We can reference the code, which you will see is later in the project, but we want to set these up so that they can be tested individually for functionality. And that's really important as we continue building our project and we start on step 6, which is where you bring everything together, because that's where problems tend to occur. Is you set everything up separately, and then as you bring everything together, the troubleshooting and the problems start occurring. So here's where it's really important that we did do step 3, 4, and 5 individually as we troubleshoot our circuit, because all of these are going to have to interface appropriately together. And that's also what step 7 comes into play here. When we look at our instructables page, it's a way for the Raspberry Pi to keep all of our signals and all of the information traveling and appropriately segmented. So this allows our Raspberry Pi, this node red flow, allows our Raspberry Pi to take all the requisite information and create an appropriate decision and reaction to send that information to the cell phone when mail has been detected. So that's going to be difficult, but establishing this flow chart will allow our Raspberry Pi to appropriately handle that information. You can see here the hardware sections, they interface, but they are separate entities within the project. So that's an exciting bit and portion, but that will be difficult in application. So that's a lot of the troubleshooting is going to come from parts 6 and 7, but necessary in DIY projects is that troubleshooting portion. So looking here at step 8, as we go on further, here you can see some of the code, some of the checking before we even get to step 8. That's obviously useful because then we can use that to start our project. And then step 8, the project is complete, and from there we can start thinking about maybe additions or modifications that we'd like to do. So during the entire build plan process, should take you 30 minutes to an hour to complete, but if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to your lead instructors. They're more than happy to assist you. Again, the goal of this is to get you to begin thinking about how you want to assemble and create your project, as well as start familiarizing yourself with the terminology and language. This is the BlueStamp build plan instruction video. Thanks for watching.